Hey, it's Mike from Apollo, and we are back looking at the world of product fit, and we are looking at our friends right here, Fictitious AI, and they've got a neat little search, citation, research, getting answers, like that kind of mystery box when you want to do some research. I've actually kind of said here, like research, coding, study, business, they're all different use cases for something like this. And you can jump in here and you can type away and search for anything you like, fully carbon, you name it. You can just type in here and go crazy. Here's your carbon report. So this is the product. So what's at the heart of this, though, is that there's a story on the outside. They've raised $2 million in funding. Everybody, like, they're hiring. Look at this. We've got two great founders hiring a bunch of people. But really the question is, what's happening on the inside? Does this product have any sort of fit, or are we actually even building the right product? This is a big question for Fictitious AI and for every single one of us who are building something. And there's like three ideas or three layers in the fit model: problem solution fit, product market fit, and business model fit. The great news for you is that you can take the first step, the problem, the solution fit. You can take that and you can do that without building a product yet. That is the beauty of the age we live in. So I've got lots of notes here that I want to talk about, but the heart of this question, we're going to go through the evaluators that are going to determine the level of fit, and we're going to get more confidence, or we're going to identify where the challenges really are. So let's have a look at the first test you need to do. It's problem, solution, fit. So we've run Fictitious AI through the evaluator that I built. I'll include the link in the description and the notes. And it's all about problem, solution, fit. And what you'll see here is that Fictitious AI hasn't done very good, 36 out of 100. And what happens here is they actually demonstrate some of the key things I constantly see with early stage companies. So let's call them out because, hey, let's make better products for the world. So their hypothesis, sometimes this is called a lean hypothesis, but their hypothesis is knowledge workers experience information overload and time friction when searching online. So at first glance, that is true because they're using Google and Wiki, maybe ChatGPT. And the value proposition that they're putting forward is, hey, you'll get a very structured report from AI that will give you this level of confidence. Now, I can tell you that it's really good to use a hypothesis. In fact, I would ensure that every single new startup has a product hypothesis or a lean hypothesis or a growth hypothesis. Yeah, that's a tongue twister. But really, the point that I want to make, though, is this is way too broad. This is way too general. Knowledge workers, well, that covers half of the 8 billion people on the planet. Okay, massive problem there. Information overload, time friction. Well, if you are targeting a very broad ICP, then the problem is going to be very broad as well. So those feel a little broad. And then in the use case of when they're searching online. All in all, the big problem here is that for an early stage company, you cannot address such a massive ICP, i.e. knowledge workers, with such a general problem solution statement. Because the thing is, you will always have more success finding a little niche. There's even famous books written about your first 100 customers. So whether you call it a niche or your first 100 customers, see if you can find a cohort that's really small and narrowly defined and build outwards. This would be building from the out in and down, and that's incredibly hard because this is way too broad and very hard to test against too, because you're talking in generalities as well. So now that we have like the hypothesis kind of torn apart, let's now go down to the problem validation. Now, in the case of Fictitious AI, they've raised $2 million in capital. So that's a healthy seed round for their AI startup. Now, the interesting thing here is that they only have done 5 interviews. If you've raised $2 million, I'm expecting to see 50 interviews. Your own surveys, which, so if you did 50 user interviews, I would like to see a survey of 500 people that meet your cohort definition. I would also notice here, and this is again coming back to that thesis, only 2 out of 5 identified with the pain that we mentioned, the information overload and the time friction. As a general rule, I would love to see 50% or above nominating the same thing as the biggest pain with your product. That means that with a narrow ICP and a very clear signal on the severity of the problem, that's a huge help when you're building and trying to create a company around it. Of course, we mentioned that the problems is too broad, too generic, but the other thing here is that there's no secondary evidence. So if, for example, they had focused on the legal and compliance industry, you'll find that there will be different industry reports available to you. Sometimes there will be, if you're doing a very big B2C product, you might even find census reports or bureau statistic reports that will support some of the problem validation that you've put up there. So what you can see here, that for a startup that's raised a seed round, 5 interviews, and those other issues I mentioned, it scores very low on problem validation. Let's now move to solution validation, not much better either. Exposure of the solution, only 12 at this stage. With capital, I mean, this, as I said, needs to be well above 50, plus also not including all your customers as well. You'll notice here that only 33% prefer the solution. I'm going to get into the switching issue, which is really big in this particular use case. There's no willingness to pay data. This is probably the biggest single thing I see missing when people do attempt some sort of problem solution fit. They get generalities. Oh, that would be nice. Yeah, would you pay $19.95 per month? And would you be willing to do that right now? Getting into pricing discovery, looking at, even if you have a pricing card with a small, medium, large, even that would be a better signal. But you would really want to actually not only have shown 50 plus users the solution, those same people, you would want them to do a pricing discovery against that. You could show them blind, like what would you be prepared to pay? See what you get. Show them different options, get feedback on that. And obviously, this solution not only needs to be very clear against the ICP, you want a combination of all these factors so you have confidence of the problem and the solution. Many people have built cool things, but they're looking for a problem to solve. Or, on the other hand, someone might be a domain expert and really know the problem, particularly in the analog world, but they haven't done any validation of how they envision solving that in the digital world. So you'll see something like this. This is kind of an interesting way of looking at it. This is the fit signature that comes from the report. And you'll notice here, like you can really see that that is way too small and narrow. You want this filling right out towards the edges. But you're really seeing here, particularly like no willingness to pay. I mean, if you don't have strong willingness to pay, like, why would you build it? If you don't know people are prepared to pay $5 a month, $5,000 a month, whatever the product, the point is, if you don't have that data, what you're going to test pricing once you've built it, that's a huge, huge risk. So you're going to see a chart looking like this if you haven't done this work. And for me, the big thing here is much bigger numbers and much more narrow in terms of ICP. So what do we deduce here? Not really sure on the problem. ICP is way too broad. As I mentioned, there's the pricing issues. But is the outcome is replicable with current tools plus extra menu effort? We're going to talk about that a lot in the next report. But here's the thing. You really want to know that you have got a knockout punch in terms of problem solution, you've got something that's radically better than what's on offer today. And then you can start building. So big story here is too narrow and too little work to validate problem solution fit. So no surprise here. It doesn't get any better when we go to the next stage. So normally a business would only go to product market fit when it's got green lights and a pass on problem solution fit. In fact, what you'll see here is like more detail of what starts to happen, and where I think this is really illustrative is if you haven't done problem solution fit, product market fit will never fix it. So you see here we've got our very general product hypothesis, knowledge workers, time scarce. And here's the big thing: when you're replacing tools such as Google and ChatGPT, there may be problems and pains associated with this use case with those incumbents. But particularly because they're such big companies, the key thing here is, are you radically improving? Are you exponentially improving against this alternative? If this is what's currently available, there's this great rule: you don't want to be 10% better, you want to be 10 times better. The reason is then it's harder for them to copy, but it's also when the user is contemplating a switch, there's this thing called switching costs. When they are thinking about a new service, they have to dump the old one and they have to onboard. And, people kind of like the status quo. In fact, there's a whole bias that has been researched that we prefer what we have now to what we could have in the future. So you're fighting against these headwinds. So what's really like a flag here is, oh, you're doing something better than Google. I hope it's 10 times better. Really, really important. Okay, so now we're already building on the fact that we did too broad an ICP. We didn't do much work with it. That's what we discovered in the previous evaluation. When we move to this second one, what we're discovering is, holy smoke, we better have evidence that we're way better than Google and ChatGPT in this case. So let's just go over here and look at acquisition, how we're getting customers at the top of the funnel. And you'll notice here that there's like launches and founder outreach, one-off, lots of human effort, completely unscalable and unrepeatable. And if you're a cash-starved early-stage company, you might be tempted to always do it like this, but you need to build a system, organic search, repeatable, scalable, system-based, whether it's cold or warm outreach, whether it's network effects, distribution partners. They might be all alternatives you have for your acquisition stability. But once they come in, one of the other big flags is churning pretty quickly. In some of my other videos, I've talked a little bit about when you offer freemium, a common pain is that more than 90% stay on free and never go to pay. That's a really big challenge in the SaaS market. Another one, be it B2C or B2B, is churning through customers. If you are losing a quarter or half of your customers every month or so, and you've got a really big downslope here on retention, that is a signal. Not only do you not have product market fit, but this would definitely be correlated with poor problem solution fit. So you really want to see this idea. I've got this little motto that they stay, they pay, and they pray to God that they have your product. They are so grateful for it. So they've got to be staying, paying, and praying. Let's see what we got down here in the report. 60% of growth tied to one-off unrepeatable. That's very challenging. Value is definitely seen as optional. That was the whole problem when you go up against big players, but also when you have a very broad ICP, monetization is going to get challenging. That churn was massive flag. And this is what I mean. You want people praying for the gratitude that they have for your product. You want them to go out and recruit new customers. In fact, when you get to business model fit, your viral coefficient, meaning every one customer that comes on goes and gets a whole entire another fresh customer. If it's one for one, business model heaven. So we've got really low scores on retention, advocacy is very low, monetization, acquisition, not very repeatable at all. So that's not product market fit. Business model fit, you are kicking ass. You're doing amazing. And then you're going to new markets with new products, new features, new variations, bringing in lots of new people. Here, you're totally stuck at trying to fix the conundrum of having something that was worth building, a truly viable, because this is totally unviable. It's like craziness, ad hoc efforts, getting you a little bit of growth. You're churning them when you get them anyway. It's a lot of issues here. So what would they need to do? As I mentioned here, number one, get a much more narrow ICP. So I love this idea, like it's all about compliance experts in large legal firms. Okay. I mean, that's a much more narrow ICP. And maybe there's a particular part of compliance. Maybe it's like document tracking, for example, or report verification. That also is like something like you want to get hired or fired based on the success of your product, because that means the stake that the customer has in it is very high and they're very willing to pay as a result. You definitely want to see this evening out. In fact, most product market fit companies are actually seeing retention improve due to better targeting at the top of the funnel, but also delivering more on the needs of their customers. All right, here. Now, you got to figure out why you're losing them and what are you not doing that would bring customers back. So try and grab those ones that are abandoning, see what the real issue is. And last one here is find your golden channel, find your magic channel. So when you acquire customers, there's like a spectrum. Paid channels, where you actually pay for the advertising, sponsorships, and events. You have your earned channels, so this is social, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. And then you have your own channels. This is where you have your website and your newsletter, things that you own. In the like roughly 20 or so default channels most businesses can consider, you will find that there is one that just works for you. So it's usually one or two of those 20, and the recipe is different for every business. So you should do a bit of experimentation, but once you get one that works, you need to lock on and go for it. I've worked with startups that really discovered the magic of their Google ads, and they just dominate in category, and they have a very good cost-benefit analysis. You can really build a business around that. So these are the jobs to be done. I'm actually not going to get into business model fit. I'm going to do a separate video on that because it's so sophisticated. I really wanted to show you the challenges for fictitious AI in problem solution fit and product market fit, because the good news is you can do exactly the same thing yourself. I built this free tool. It's called ProductBooks, and it's available at b2bproductbooks.com, and you can run these free evaluators. You can really get stuck into it. So first one is problem solution fit, and then product market fit. We talked a lot about that. If you are so lucky that the product that my evaluators let you do business model fit, because you actually need to pass product market fit to get into this. Each of these has 5 operators. Here are the operators, and they get into all the different things that really were revealed in your evaluation, and maybe you need to improve, but it really zooms in and isolates them, helps you test against those. All of this is just a way of saying, what is the answer to this question? Are we building the right product? It helps you validate product decisions. Oh my gosh, so many decisions come out of these reports before you hire, scale, and commit to long-term costs. That's what I was talking about at the start of the video. Like, you should be building with confidence, not on wishful thinking and not on guesses. Well, I hope you are building the right product. Tell me how you're doing with the evaluators. Let me know your scores and the challenges you have. I'm really interested to see how you're doing. You'll have lots of operators to help you through the answers as well. All right, that's it for now. I'll see you next time.